Okay, here we are, September 30. 30 days have September, April, June, and November. This is the last day of the month. It's Monday. That means Tuesday is the first day of October. We're getting to the last 6 weeks of hurricane season, and there's more stuff cooking. If you look out towards the west coast of Africa, which then connects all the way over here, making for problems. Yeah. With a capital P. There we go. You can see my work surface. I put this guy on here just to cover those keys because we don't need to use the keyboard anymore. We're all set up on this little setup. Over here you can see my soundboard, which is really quite amazing. Yeah, we just opened the door where the crowd is, and every once in a while they sneak in the door and scream and make noise. September 30. You can see the batteries on all my things. This is the case of the whoops, whatever these doodads, ear pods, I guess I call them. In the charging case, it's the older version, so I got to use the lightning. I have two lightning things left. Otherwise, I'm completely converted to. Oh, see, look at that. Yeah, we can see it out there. It wants to pair. I don't think so. That's pretty nice with the Apple devices. It finds a. Since I opened it right here, it went to that one. Pretty neat. There it goes again. Magical. Anyway, the case for the earpods, they're the ones with the sound cancellation, which actually works. There's the earpods themselves. Yeah, that's the case. So those guys are fully charged. The case is, I would say, 90% charged. So when you put them back in the case charges them up again. And I think it does that 3 or 4 times. This is my iPhone, fully charged. My Apple Watch is fully charged. Yep. There's my blood pressure, 70, 80, 70, 80, 70, 80, 70, 82, 75, 80, 76, 86, you know. That's 12 a.m. to 12 p.m. They give you a 12-hour look. My blood oxygen. This is actual real results right off my Apple Watch, which has got all these little sensors on the back of the case. And tomorrow is the Vance Waltz set for VP Showdown tomorrow. Well, all I can tell you is this. I'm just looking up here at this screen, which you can't see because it's too bright. Let's turn it down. Now you can see it. Get this black thing out of the way. Tuck it in there. There we go. Yeah. Anyway, Waltz and Vance are gonna have a voice out tomorrow on who can deliver. With 70 million people watching. See who lives up to their reputation. Vance has been subject to questioning by occasional hostile audiences. News conferences, news gigs, where they're just following him all around, and he stops, and all of a sudden there's a news thing going on. Or they surround him when he's on stage. Or he has a friendly audience when he's giving a rally. And he fills up the rallies. I'm impressed, actually. The same kind of a situation with Trump. Initially, I wasn't a big Trump guy at all. But after him serving as president for 4 years, and now being, out on the campaign mode for the last, 16 months, I'm 100% Trump, I have to say. He's earned it. Well, same kind of thing with Vance. Wasn't initially, a Vance guy. But after watching him, on the stump for, 5 months, whatever number of months it's been, 4 months. Well, no, for the 18 months, for 2 years. Because I wasn't a big fan of his when he was running for Senate. I didn't really follow him. He's a 2-year senator. He's a junior senator in Ohio, and of his 6-year term, he's used up 2 years. And then Trump picked him up for this vice president role, which is really quite a serious role. It was down to him and Marco Rubio. I was actually in favor of him picking up Rubio, because Rubio's got like 12 years experience in the Senate. He's a reasonable guy. He knows how to, you can hammer his, pardon the expression, you can hammer his ass really hard in any kind of a news conference thing. And he's pretty much unflappable. I give Vance actually that same quality. He's, Vance is a smart guy. He graduated, from Yale Law School. I think he graduated from Yale undergraduate also. He and his wife, I believe, both went to undergraduate, and I think they met when they were in law school, and they graduated law school. And that's a serious school. Yale's a serious, well, they're all serious. Even the ones you've never heard of are serious. They all, make you think and get you out of your high school box. And you have all these living things, you have to figure out how to get along with your roommates. You have roommates. I had 2 roommates when I first went to Union College. And they were both basketball players. So here comes Mini Jim, I'm like 5'8" if I stretch it. And I got these 2 big guys, Bobby Cox and another one. Bobby Cox was a sophomore, and the other one was a senior classman. And I'm sorry to say I don't remember his name. He was never around when I was around, so I never really got to know him. I mean, shook hands the first day. Yeah, but I knew a little tiny bit. Bobby Cox, I knew a lot, because after your 5, they had dinner from 5 to 6, and or maybe 5 to 7. Yeah, it's probably that. You have cafeteria style dinners, and quite frankly, I love cafeteria food. Everybody complains about it. I loved it. Oh God, yes sir. So we'd line up on purpose at 4:55. We were there before the doors opened, and you kind of line up, and you have your lunch card, which you have to, it's like a credit card thing. You showed them or swiped it, I forget which, or both. Matter of fact, in those days, I don't even think you swiped it. You just showed it to somebody, and they, and they learn to recognize who you are. And then after a while, you don't even have to show it after a couple of months, because they've got you figured out. Everyone kind of goes to dinner at the same time, not early. I mean, you got 2 hours to get your butt in there. But I love the cafeteria food. Half the people that I used to have dinner with, or it's breakfast, lunch, dinner, same place. Different menu selections if it's breakfast, lunch, or dinner. No scrambled eggs for dinner. Anyway, so we would eat 5 o'clock sharp, because we wanted to get our asses out of there, pardon the expression, because at the end of that, we had it prearranged. We go back to my room, and I took a door off, the wall, and we played pinochle. Oh, God. Anyway, I took the door off the hinge. It was like a half door or something. Yeah. And these built-in wall thingies where you have some drawers, and then you can put your shaving stuff and this and that, and your nail clippers and the stuff you'd put on top of your dresser. And then they had a door that would cover it up. So it was like a half door. Well, you take that half door off and you put it down on a couple of crates, and all of a sudden you got a pinochle table. And we whip out the cards. I think a pinochle deck was 48 cards. And I'd have to have a refresher on, the rules and order of pinochle. But anyway, there'd be 4 of us sitting around the pinochle table. There'd usually be 2 in there watching. Because if somebody got tired of playing, they fill in, they sit down. You play in teams. The opposites this way or a team, and the opposite this way or a team. Sitting around a square table, or in this case, a slightly rectangular table. Play pinochle. So I actually didn't know. I don't know when it ended because after a while, like after about a month or two, I went over to the classroom building, which would be empty at 7 or 8 o'clock, 7:30. So at 7:30, a student from Scranton, Pennsylvania. I'll think of his name in a minute. I remember where he came from, Scranton, Pennsylvania. He used to talk about all the snow he got up there. Scranton, Pennsylvania, Buffalo, New York, that whole area just got buried in snow, like 5 or 6 or 8 feet of snow over the season. So anyway, so we go up there to the classroom. So, and I think it seems like I had to pack up my stuff, and by 7:30 I had to be walking across the campus to this student, it's a classroom building. Number 1, 2, 3, or 4. I forget which number it was. We go over there, and by 8 o'clock, that's when we had to get up there. Or maybe it was 7:30. Because I don't remember playing pinochle that long. So at 7 o'clock, I'd be done. I give up my seat, and someone would sit down in my seat, and I'd say, "Okay, guys, now behave yourself, because I got to go." "Oh, where are you going?" "Well, I'm going over to the classroom building. I got my books, and I got things I got to study before my classes tomorrow." And I believe his last name was Waltz. Not the proposed vice president with Kamala, because that's like Walz. This is Waltz. Yeah. First name David Waltz. Yep, that was his name. Good student. I mean, he was a student all the way around. And the reason why he was is he would break off of his whatever the hell he was doing and go up to that classroom building at 7:30. And he says, "Jimmy, if you're gonna come with me, we gotta be, with backpack and in hand, because we gotta get in this building, which is no problem. The front door is open, unlocked, and you just go in there and you get yourself up to the 3rd floor, and you pick a classroom, and I pick a classroom. We may be able to do it in, he says, I need a desk. I need the front desk, the teacher's desk, as the platform for me with my books and my case and open up stuff and a little something to drink, a can of soda. And he said, so I said, "Okay, I'll be in the room across the hall from you." Because I like that idea. We use a teacher's desk, and we'll be in our own room, so we won't bother each other when we start rummaging around for the next subject or whatever. And we're going to do this. We're going to basically start at 8, 9, 10. Yeah. So right to, like 3.5 hours to 11:30. And if we get there at 8, then we get there before or just after, I forget which, the guards, because they'll come in and they'll walk through the building. They kind of listen for stuff. They don't really, go up every floor and walk the floors. Particularly if we're on the top floor. They usually miss the top floor. And if they happen to come in, you just say, I'm just studying up here. I'll be out in, 45 minutes or whatever, an hour and 40, but you tell them whatever. We're out by 11:30. And he'd say, okay. Yeah, we weren't damaging anything. We were just sitting up there with our books out. You got a can of soda out or whatever, or a bottle of water. And we'd show up there from 7:30 to 11:30. We got 4 hours. Yep. That was it. David Waltz and Jimmy. Every day we did it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Friday. Yep. But not Saturday. Saturday I didn't go. I don't think he did either. So I told him, we were walking back and forth. I said, I'm not going to do it Saturday. Saturday is play day. But we start again Sunday night. Right? He says, yeah. So that's Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and probably Friday. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Yep, that's what we did. And I'll tell you what, you talk about it affecting your grades when you're putting in 4 hours a night. But, you're having fun for, 5 until 7:30. You got 2.5 hours of playtime. And then it's time to, hang it up and do what you got to do so you're prepared for the Monday classes, Tuesday classes, whatever. And if you have a light load for your Monday classes, then you just break into the study for your Tuesday classes. And, you always stay at least, even with it or ahead of it. And I became, David Waltz was already, a curve breaker. Now, he wasn't part of our pinochle team, so he didn't know, a lot about it, a lot of people. He was real quiet. I was the guy he knew because I'd walk over with him to the classroom building and I'd walk back to our dormitory. He didn't live in my dormitory. He was somewhere else. I was on the ground floor. It was like room 107 or something like that, 105. Yeah. Anyway, so I was a little more well-known because I was part of this pinochle crowd. And then on Saturday, we'd all go, instead of the pinochle, we'd go over to the Student Union building. And maybe we did that Wednesday and Saturday. Because I remember going over to the Student Union, I think on Wednesday also. And we get there, it's at 5, we'd eat and yak for like 30 minutes, which is plenty of time. And then we'd all get out of the dining room and march over to the Student Union building. And we play pool. And the table was usually open, because everyone's left and getting ready for dinner and whatever. So we had a open season on the billiard thing. So we played pool for, an hour and a half. And then I break off, if it was a study night, which was every night except Saturday. Saturday was the day of rest, academic rest. But Sunday we'd be back at it. So we either played pinochle for an hour and a half, or we played pool for an hour and a half. And we got good at it, So we'd alternate, playing 8-ball, team 8-ball, 4 of us, or play pinochle. Rotate around on the, who's who on the partners. And if one of us, if let's say 2 of us were a little bit better than the other 2, we'd split up. Because, you're not trying to crush your opposition. So we'd rotate around who plays with who. And the two better players wouldn't play with each other. I happen to be one of the better players. Yeah, old scientific Jimmy. But when you have a schedule like that, you get good. You get real good. So I got very academic. I remember my first semester, sophomore year, I saw this. I got on the binge to become a medical student. So I had a pre-med program at Union. So my first semester, sophomore year, I went to Dr. Gilbert. He was the head of the biology department. And I said, Dr. Gilbert, I want to take bacteriology this semester. He says, well, Mr. Wilson, that's a 371 class. The 3 meaning junior year, the second semester junior year. And he looks at me and he says, do you think you're prepared for a second semester junior year class when you're only a first semester sophomore? Do you think you could really do that? I says, Dr. Gilbert, I really think I do. And I look through the prerequisites for that class, and none of the other subjects that are offered here really, give you any, background, like a prerequisite requirement, for bacteriology. He says, by golly, Mr. Wilson, I think you're correct. He says, so if you think you're mature enough, I think that's how he had to put it. Like, the sophomores are still stoops. I said, yeah, I love the textbook by Weber, White, and Manning, which these are actually the right authors. I don't know why I remember that, but I remember the weirdest things. Yep. It was a 371 class, I can tell you that. It was Dr. Gilbert I had to talk to. He says, well, I'll give you written approval for that, but it'll take me a couple of days. I said, well, since you're the gentleman that takes the cards for the enrollment, why don't you take my card and put a note on it and with a paper clip and just keep it. Kind of reserve a seat for me just in case you sell out. For the sake of a couple of days, let's reserve me. Because you're saying yes now, right? He said, yeah. I said, well, take my card, put a piece of paper over it or something, a piece of brown paper, put a paper clip on top of that, And you got it right there. And that way, as soon as you issue the letter, then you can pick that paperclip off and we're done. And you can just, have your letter addressed to my mailbox. And, I'll get it in a couple hours. And then we're kind of like done. We're going to assume the positive. He says, okay, I'll do that. It's amazing. I get calls on my iPad. My phone is over here, which you can see with my finger. It's over here. Turn the lights up a little bit. There you go. It's right there. I got all these lights glowing. I don't need much lights. Man, see here? Someone's calling my iPad. Jeez. Get all these crazy solicitation calls. But they call on the iPads. It's a crazy thing. I mean, every one of my iPads light up. Then it doesn't go to this one. I've blocked some of the numbers. You can block the numbers for each device. It's a little bit of a pain in the butt. So if that party left a message, I'll go back to that message, go to that phone number and block it. Unless it's somebody I know. I don't answer calls for people I don't know. People or entities. Like a Visa card or something. The bank. I won't block that number. And so therefore it'll come through. I actually create a name and address card, in your phone book. And if it's in my address book, the call comes through. If it's not in my address book, the phone won't even ring. It won't come in. Look at these pictures of what's going on in Rutherford County, North Carolina. My God, these places, it's like sawdust. I don't know what kind of construction. You see toilets. That's all you can see is toilets upside down, right side up, all laying around. So if it's a 3-3, 3 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, all you saw was the toilets. Everything else was sawdust. Not quite sawdust, pieces of wood maybe the size of your fist. I mean, that's like tornado. Yeah. These guys in North Carolina said the storm that went through was like the whole hurricane. Was a 200-mile wide hurricane tornado. I knew this was going to be a real crusher because when it, almost immediately, when a hurricane spins into the first coast, landfall, the inside pressure, the cyclonic action creates a low pressure inside the middle of the, in the eye of the storm. When these planes fly through these storms and they fly through the eye, they have barometers, in the airplanes and, or barometer things that stick through the fuselage. So the inside pressure, because the cabins are pressurized to a certain degree, and then you don't want that distortion. So it's a thing that goes through the fuselage, and it has the sensor for the pressure. And the pressure, when a storm is, a Category 3 or 4 storm, I mean, depending on the diameter of it, it might be 900, and 40 millibars. And I think this one got to 940 millibars, even when it was a Cat 4. So that immediately tells me, and I'm just, this is not meteorology class. This is just Jimmyisms. But you just, I've been doing this a while, and if it's a really big storm with a really big eye, meaning the eye might be, 30 or 40 or 50 miles in diameter, the millibars, when it's a Cat 3 or Cat 4, 130 mile an hour winds, the millibars will be about 930, 945, 942, that kind of millibars, that kind of pressure. 1,000, a little over 1,000 millibars is like a normal STP, standard temperature and pressure at sea level. But if you have a real big storm, it's like 945 millibars. If you have a smaller storm with a real tight, well-defined eye, and we've got pictures of them, the visible light radar, where you can see the clouds and you can look right through the eye of that storm and see the water. I mean, you can see the waves in the water in the ocean or the Gulf. It's so, clean eye. But, in that case, the millibars may come down to like 910, 909, 912 millibars. So it's a smaller storm with a real well-defined eye. And it's a Cat, it's a 130 mile an hour winds, which is a, really strong one. The millibars will be 910. If it's a big storm where the maximum sustained winds is 130 miles an hour, which is a Cat 3, it's going into Cat 4, then the millibars won't get that low. They'll only be at 940. Kind of like went around the turn on that, but it's, and the other thing, all right, so the typical storm, when it crosses, into landfall, and they, and they make special note of exactly where it, went, they put a cross there where it crossed land, and I don't know what this is. I think I'm talking to Siri in my station here. This is a MacBook Pro, computer. This is iPad. This is iPhone. This calendar thing is just a calendar thing. 3:11 p.m. September 30. There you go. Monday afternoon. Yeah. I have one of those in the bathroom also. Instead of this, I have this electronic sign looking clock thing. If I turn up the lights, will that become visible? A little bit more. But I don't like sitting in bright lights. Anyway, so getting back to my hurricane thing. So if you have a landfall that happens, the pressure immediately starts going up because the velocity of the hurricane going counterclockwise, slows down a little bit because you have the interference with the wind on, the buildings and trees and all that as it crosses land. And before the eye actually fully is over land, the storm has come down a couple of categories. It might go from a Cat 3 or 4 to a Cat 2 or 1. But the one thing I've noticed is when you have a storm that is increasing in intensity as it's crossing land, oh my God, that's a storm to, that means that is going to be a shredding machine. And this was when the eye was well inland, like 100 miles inland, it was still a Cat 4. So, holy mackerel. Yeah, that's pretty much total destruction. When you have a Cat 4 eye, that's over land. So when you have a storm that's increasing in intensity as it's crossing land, that is oh my God, that's a storm that's going to do a tremendous amount of damage. And when it slows down to, Cat 3, Cat 2, that takes more hours. And this is fast-moving storm. So here's another factor. Sorry, I got off on this weather kick, but it's important to remember. So if it's, on the west coast of Florida, and it crosses the peninsula, okay? So, and here it was crossing the peninsula up in the top part, where that little elbow is, So it crosses land, and so it's going, let's say, 130 miles an hour. So the strong part of the storm is when the winds come around over water and hit land again. That's where the strong part of the storm is. It's on the bottom of the storm. It's on the south end. This is now on the west coast of Florida. If it's coming across the coast this way, the southern part of that storm is the tough part. One of the reasons why is because these winds are going around in a big circle. That's the cyclonic motion. Well, this half of the circle is going over water. So there are no buildings and stuff. It's picking up energy from the warm water as it comes in land again. And then this wind, gets battered up as it's going around all the buildings and trees and stuff that interferes with the storm. Okay? Now, it's a big storm. So even when the eye is in here, 30% of the storm is still over water. And it picks up energy when the wind is over the water. So on the southern part of the hurricane, let's just say it this way. So right here, this is water. This is land. Hurricane is going right around here. So right at this point, and this storm was moving at like 30 miles an hour. The movement of the whole storm. So you got 130 mile an hour cyclonic motion here, and it's moving at 30 miles an hour. So you know what happens here? If it's 130 mile an hour wind, it's really 160 mile an hour wind down here, because you not only got 130 mile an hour winds, you got to add the forward motion to the southern part of that storm. So that's 160 mile an hour winds. That's why, these areas just got so trashed. because even as the winds is coming up, into South Carolina and North Carolina, you have to add the forward motion of the cyclonic motion. You get over here to the right side of the storm because you have to add the forward motion to the speed of this wind. Yep. And I noticed the one thing about this guy is it was going like 25 miles an hour even when it was way down parallel to Tampa. Several hundred miles from where it crossed over into land. And that place where it crossed over, they were like, I saw a little history thing. It was like 7 or 8 storms that came right over the same area, in the last 20, 30 years. And 3 of them came over that area in the last 18 months. Within 10 miles, the place where it crossed over. So now on the east coast of Florida, the cyclonic motion, counterclockwise motion, the top side of the storm is the place where there's maximum damage, if you will, because you have to add the forward motion because it's crossing over this way. I'm on the east. This is the east coast of Florida, and it's coming this way or this way or straight in. You add the forward motion to the wind speed because they're flying through the eye, and it doesn't matter which way they fly through the eye walls. They do it both ways, actually. Usually they cross over both ways because they're taking pressure readings. So there's no additive effect of the forward motion because they have to subtract the speed of the plane, if you will. And they're contained in the hurricane. So there's no ground speed effect with the speed of the eye walls. The only speed they got to worry about is the speed of the airplane. Anyway, so that's a little hurricane knowledge. So I could tell this one was going to be a big one because, you got a Cat 3 or Cat 4 storm, and the millibars doesn't get below 940. That's got to be a really big eye. Yeah. Hurricane Andrew that came through. It was coming straight into. Let's put up Florida again. It was coming straight into, Hollywood, Florida. Andrew. Now that was a compact storm with a big eye, oddly enough. It was a small compact storm, but it had a 35, 40 mile eye, which is big. Usually the eyes on these hurricanes is 15 miles. You get a 45 mile eye, that's 3 times the diameter. So it was kind of like that. It had a 45 mile eye, but the storm itself was not that big. It was this, the one that just went through Florida was huge. It was 500 miles ear to ear. We'll just say it that way. The Hurricane Andrew was maybe 150 miles wide ear to ear. Oops. I just stopped my music with my fingers. Sorry about that. my background music, royalty-free, Epidemic Sound Instrumental. I put that in as my background. When you're streaming, it always helps to keep streaming. So when I'm breathing, it's still streaming. How about that for an alliteration? Yeah, that's a truism. So I just took a breath, see? But you can still hear music in the background. So what that does is it keeps bytes going through the stream, you know. And if there's no bytes going through, I might lose one of my Simulcasts. Because this is a Simulcast between YouTube Live, Twitter Live, and Facebook Live. At the @ sign, at FAU for you. That's for that's my handle on what do you call it? YouTube Live and Facebook Live, both of those. @ sign FAU for you. Why do I have that as my handle? Well, because 10 years ago, I was teaching at FAU for 10 years. I've been on the adjunct faculty, and 8 years and 7 years and 6 years. Yeah, I've been teaching there. I'm adjunct faculty in the College of Science, teaching principles of digital photography. I wrote a book on the topic, got it published with Pearson Education in 2003. And then they did a second edition in 2007, in which I updated everything. And, so I'm still adjunct faculty in the College of Science. Yes. Russell Ivey is the chairman of the head chair. They call it chairs. You have a chair. Some people have slightly bigger chairs than others, I think. And that's, like you have CEO, CFO, COO. CEO is Chief Executive Officer. Well, that's the head chair of the College of Science, and that is Dr. Russell Ivey, IVY. And he's a good guy. He's been very helpful for me in setting up these classes and continuing them. John Harlan got me in there. He's the one that internally, he's a doctor, PhD. And he was on a special assignment at FAU. And he went around and talked to all the faculty members separately. He talked to them as a group. And then he came back to me. This is 2 weeks later, after we decided that it would be a good thing for me to be on the, in the College of Science. I started it. I was with continuing education, and I taught 2 or 3 classes there. And you hand out these sheets, on what they thought of the class. When you're done, you hand out one of these, it's FAU standard form of, the students grading the teacher. And they ask 20 or 30 questions. And it's usually, oops, Marilyn's calling. Hold on a minute. Hello?
Hey.
How you doing?
Did you call the doctor?
Did I call the doctor? Why am I calling the doctor?
You said you felt weak.
I said I felt weak, huh?
Do you have what I have?
What's that?
Are you sick? Do you feel like you're getting it back?
No. Yeah.
I can't do this again. This is terrible. If you're sick, I want you to get on medicine.
No, I'm about as sick as you are.
Yeah, but I got medicine.
I have medicine.
Are you taking an antibiotic and prednisone?
Yes, I am.
Mine or yours?
Can we talk about this when you get home? Are you coming home? Well, when? Yeah. Okay. See you at 4:30. Love you. Bye. That's number one. She's worried. Wants me to call the doctor. I says, why am I calling the doctor? I got the same illness you have. I'm taking the. So she says, you're taking the same meds I am? I said, yeah, exactly same thing. Doxycycline and prednisone. A pill in the morning each, and a pill in the morning each in the evening. Twice a day. Yeah. Oh, I always have a little extra laying around. So when I get the next illness, and I get almost the same thing all the time, cough, cold, tired, so it's just like COVID-19, except it's not COVID-19. It's some other kind of virus. Remember, we get all kinds of viruses floating around. We had all kinds of viruses floating around before COVID-19. And I remember reading figures where it was like 30,000 people died in the United States a year just from the common virus. I guess they get it real bad, or they're in real bad shape and their body can't fight it, or whatever, or either some of the above or all of the above. And that's maybe they're 90 and boom, they're dead, or they wait too long to get the medicine. And when you get older, you get lazy. You're not in the car all the time, and going to the doctor is really a pain in the butt. You sit in a lobby with a bunch of sick people. That's not a good idea. So I always try to get the doctor to agree to a telemed where we can speak on the phone, video. It's like a FaceTime, but it's a medical version of FaceTime, so that it's super secure and no one can look at you except the doctor. We can look back and forth at each other. So I got this little picture up on the TV, and you talk back and forth. It's really quite efficient, because the call only goes like 8 or 9 minutes, and he agrees to. I know what kind of meds I want, so I can say, and I know what kind of meds I wanted from Marilyn. So when she got on her telemed call last week, she was, it was like 7, 8, 9 minutes. And then he said, okay. I said, Doc, doxycycline for 2 a day for 7 days a week, 14 pills. Yep. And then I said, well, can we do 3 a day for 7 days, 21 pills? And when she starts getting better, if she starts getting better faster than what we think, then we'll just taper off the doxycycline, and do 3 a day, and when she really starts getting better, go back to 2 a day for a couple of days, and go 1 a day for a couple of days. So we may have like 5 pills left over. So let's just do it that way, and then we're for sure we're going to have plenty to knock this off, because we're in our 70s. It's not like we're in our 30s. So we gotta make sure we knock this off, because we don't want to like catch on again when we're running out of the meds. He says, okay, let's do that. And I said, okay. And we wanted, so that's the prednisone. So we're going to go prednisone 3 times a day for 10 days. And same thing, she starts getting better, we'll taper off the prednisone. So that's 3 days for 10 days. That's 30 pills. So 20 pills of this and 30 pills of that. He said, okay, that's good. So that's what he said. So you like telling the doctor what what meds we want. Yeah, well, it's kind of, he said, okay, that's good. That's a good combination. Yeah. So, because he'll do a Z-Pack or this and that. I said, no Z-Pack. Just prednisone. Not prednisomazone. Prednisone. The real thing. You get these Z-Packs. It's because it's never enough, they must be giving those things to real healthy 35-year-olds. But when you're 70-something, those Z-Packs, you need 3 Z-Packs. And I don't want to, order refills and all that. It's easier just to do the prednisone. It doesn't happen to us but twice a year, so it's not like we're going to, overdose on a real steroid. I'm not using it she's not going to use it for bodybuilding. Okay, doctor, that's good? Yes. Yes, sir. So I said, doctor, how you doing? How you feeling? You got your happy shirt on. He looks like he just came back from Hawaii. He has this Hawaiian-looking shirt with all kinds of colors all over. A silk shirt looked like. I said, yeah, you look like you got your happy shirt. He says, that's exactly what I call it, my happy shirt. I said, I know, because we keep seeing you with your happy shirt on. That's nice. You may as well. You don't need to be, and if you got to wear a white robe, you just put it over top of it. If you come around a lot of, near a lot of containers of germs, samples, fluid samples from sick people. You want to have something covering yourself up, so if there's any spillage, it goes on that jacket, which ends up in the laundry every night, instead of on your clothing, and then you rub on it and you get sick. Yeah, how many different sicknesses can you have at once, right? They deal with 20 or I think 22 patients a day. And the telemeds generally never longer than 10 minutes. So they have 10 minutes of the conversation with the patient. He's taking notes. And then when he hangs up the call, then he starts reading in digital stuff into his, their system. Because you have to have digital notes so you can dictate those. So he writes the notes first, and then he can dictate, from his notes and what the prescriptions were and all that. And it puts it in all the right spots. They put, these Baptist medical affiliates, that are affiliated with the hospital. The hospital owns them, and he gets a salary. Instead of him getting a piece of all the billings and the insurance payments and all that, he's on a salary. Probably 100. I'm not too sure what it would be. I'll say 130,000 a year. That's a lot of money. You go home trouble free. 130. You get raises. With cost of living increases and so forth. You can live very nicely on 130,000 a year. Go up to 180, 190. And if you get topped out, you can just start looking for some other place. Look up the medical things for, doctors wanted. internal doctors. A lot of these doctors are internal surgery, closing up hernias and all that stuff. I was actually a pre-med student, so we had a number of visitations to the medical school, but we weren't actually in the medical school. We were pre-med students in undergraduate work. So when we got to medical school, we were like, running and going instead of starting from scratch. We would already have some credit hours in the medical school training. And then by the time when you're done with your senior year, by the time you end up going to medical school, you've knocked off the first semester of freshman year of the medical school. You've actually completed everything that's done in the first semester of medical school. And you have 8 semesters, right? 4 years, 8 semesters. So half of the first year is done. So, you're working on the second semester of your first year the day you walk in there. So it's pretty good. Anyway, so in effect, I was a pre-med student. I just didn't finish. I know what it was. I got engaged to a girl named Ricky, Rikki. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to say the last name. So Ricky and I were, hot and heavy, senior in college, and she was a freshman in college. She was at Case Western Reserve. I was at Union College. So I drive all the way over there often. And, back and forth. And we became engaged during the summer. So, and her father was a doctor. And she told me, she said, if you go to medical school to become a doctor, she says, we're done. I said, really? Wow, that's quite calculating. I said it just that way. And she said, yeah, no. Because, if we have a family and, kids, they're not going to know you. I'm not going to know you anymore. Because you're going to be spending so many hours, in the hospital and with the patients and yada, yada, whatever it is. You're going to be spending 18 hours a day with your, curing people. And you're going to be a surgeon, She said, I just know it. You got this capacity to, learn things, and you're going to be a surgeon. It's just a matter you have to figure out what part of the body you want to specialize in. Yeah. So that's I'm gonna work on the top half of the body, not the bottom part. Yeah, no, I don't know. Yeah, putting a scope up someone's ass all day long. No, I'm not going to do that. You know, knees maybe, but that's a little. You know, I want the life-threatening stuff. You know, in the body. You know, the abdominal, heart, liver, you know, stomach, intestinal things. You know, let the guy that does the scope up the butt, you know, tell me what part of the, you know, the small or large intestine needs to be removed. You know, and it's like a hose, and they just cut it, and then you put the two pieces together. And that middle piece you took out had the cancer, assuming it didn't metastasize. That's a bad word in the cancer business. That M word. Yeah, you don't want that. My doctor takes off little skin cancers off my neck and throat area. So far, it's been confined to this area. Well, he's taken a few pieces off my legs too. Yeah. But I have to determine where they are, which is kind of odd. So I just, you know, on the these papers that are turned in. So you got the silhouette of a body, you got the head up here, and this line drawing goes up here, and then the arm is there, and it goes here to the shoulder, and it goes into the neck, up and around to the head, back around the neck, and then the arm, and then it goes back up here, it goes down to your torso, and it goes right down through your feet. So you got this line drawing, you know, like the chalk drawings that they do of body's length, you know, on the ground. Well, I went online and I picked up, you know, the FBI line drawing of a body as if it was laying, you know, on the street, you know, arms out and legs open a little bit. And I use that. I put dots on that corresponding to the general location of where I saw something that looked like it could be, you know, growing or something. He says, that's what you got to do. He says, I can't look at your whole body, and it's not going to help, because if they're not growing, you know, then they're not, you know, they're not cancerous, so to speak. So I figured, oh, okay. I'll keep looking at all these things, and if they seem to be growing, then I was just looking at this. They were showing the last 4 elections. That's 16 years worth of elections, including this, and what the polling chart determined is that the spread, in other words, of Democrats you know, there's a 9% advantage because you are in an election with Democratic Union households. You're 9 points up. 4 years before that, Biden was 19 points up. And 4 years before that, you know, Hillary Clinton was 29 points up. And so forth as you go back in time. It was like a sliding scale, but it was going downhill. whereas the union households where Kamala only has a 9% advantage, whereas all the Democratic candidates before you, was 20, 30, and 40-point advantages. That's a problem, because you don't have the strength of your own party union members. So that's why I paused for a minute. So, when you're 5 weeks, basically 5 weeks out, right? Tomorrow it's 5 weeks. Today is 5 weeks in a day. So we're getting close. After this week, then there's only 4 weeks. It's a month. 30 days out. Holy mackerel. It's hard to have big changes in your... This is when the change occurs, I think. In other words, this week and next week. Because when you get under, 3 weeks, everybody that's paying attention has made up their minds. And they're it's pretty much unchangeable unless what they call a poison pill or one of the Democratic guys are pulling a trick on Bush 43 when he was getting elected, and like 3 days before the election day, that weekend before election day, the Democrats came up with a DUI ticket, driving while under the influence, that Bush had, 20 years ago. Look at that. Drunk driving. He got arrested and, And he did. He had a valid ticket and had, all the, judge. He was penalized. I don't remember what the penalties were, but that's like a poison pill. That's what the opposite party does. They try to find something, dig deep, and they'll pop it out there, the week before the election, which doesn't give the opposition party enough time to come up with a reasonable reason. Put that way. Yeah. It's been, there's a lot going on. Oh my God, we're going to cross over into the news here. September 30. Well, they're always picking on old Elon Musk. He's really worried about these, the headlines on the right side of this picture is is an underground atom splitting. It's a big circle. When you just look down there, it looks straight. But if you come down here, it's a big, its circumference is, like 3 or 4 miles. It's all built underground. I mean, it's built. They dig big holes, trenches. This big circular trench, huge. He calls it Earth's 17-mile-long death machine. This is where they do the atom splitting and all that. It's not a centrifuge. That's when things, this machine that's countertop, so to speak, and they have test tubes. And they do this when they test your blood for things. And they put the same amount of fluid in opposite sides of the centrifuge. And it spins at, like 20 or 30,000 RPM. I mean, it's really fast. It's a thing, they close it up and it starts spinning like crazy. And that's how they get all the cells, the blood cells, to get down to the bottom of the tube, because they're interested in looking at the fluid in this particular test. So that's a centrifuge. This is not a centrifuge. This is these inside this pipe, which has got some very heavy duty bolts on it. Can we see a connecting bolt? It's got sensors all over it, magnetic fields around it. It's a multi-billion-dollar device. And there's a starting point. There's an entry point. This is like over here in this big circle. It's a perfect circle, by the way. Yeah, it's not elliptical, whatever, because they end up exciting atoms and getting them to go very fast. And, there's magnetic fields around this pipe to keep that flow of electrons going, in something that's a pencil diameter of these electrons that are going around fast. An accelerator. That's what it's called, an accelerator. And it goes faster and faster and faster and faster. Now it's got a real big diameter, so the length, there's a lot of influence to keep this pencil diameter flow of electrons going faster and faster and faster. And then in the central point of this thing, they'll put some, atoms. Like if you put a helium atom in there, you're going to end up with hydrogen and oxygen because it's going to split it. That's what happens. There's so much energy in this circle motion that when you introduce a body like an atom of this or an atom of that, uranium atom, it splits it into deuterium, whatever. Uranium goes into deuterium. So this machine here creates all these atom splitted unique uranium products, which then are they are then put in big centrifuges, and the atom splitted uranium then gets concentrated because it's been split. It's radioactive, more radioactive than the uranium was, a lot more radioactive. which means it's throwing off these, these particles. Yeah, the radioactivity is so strong. It's a killer. If you put your hand, in the way of that, if you're like this, trying to block your face from the effects of the uranium, it won't work because the particles goes right through into your head. You have to have a lead plate. Like a plate like this, made out of lead. Or behind a nice big wall made of lead. Or the walls of this are, protected. This is actually electromagnetic radiation as opposed to radiation from something that's radioactive, where this little piece of metal is throwing off all this material. And it throws it off for like 10,000 years. Yeah. So anybody that's, handling radioactive material and not being suited up properly, you get radiation sickness and you die quickly. Not instantly, but, in 4 or 5 days you're dead. Depending on, how much radioactivity you've got. If you didn't quite get so much radioactivity, because you're only partially stupid, then you last a month and drop dead of radioactive sickness, which there's no treatment for. Because, your body has been irradiated and you're going to just die. And if you were in a whole bunch of radioactivity, you die in several hours. And you can step that down to, you die in 30 days and everything in between. But if you developed radioactive sickness, the longest you can go is, 30 days. Because there really isn't any treatment for it. They're just going to discover how much radioactivity you've gotten, but you're going to tell them exactly where you were. Yeah. Because all the sources of radioactivity are known to the science community in any particular site. Even, caves and this and that, places that mine radioactive material. They know where all those places are too. So you have to tell them where you were or what what building you were in or what mine hole your shaft you were in. Yeah. Or what bomb you were standing next to in the arsenal. Or what arsenal factory, in Nevada or wherever. Yeah. When I was, before I was born, how about that? My father told me when I was like 12 about something that he was doing when he was, so before I was born, my father provided all the steel for the manufacturing of a building just north of New York City in what was known to be a Bulliver watch factory. And they had a big Bulliver clock on the front of the building. But it was way up high because it was a big building, like 4 stories high. And, with a roof that had an arched roof. So on the top part of the arch, when one of the beams come across, they had a clock right up in that little spot. Tastefully placed in the middle of that triangle. And then the rest is a big building and big doors, and it was associated with a railroad track. So it had, the properly sized driveways into the warehouse on the side that were, at grade, 42 inches above grade, I think is the actual height when you open up a train car and you're going to load it with materials. You skip straight across from the level of the warehouse to the level of the train thing. And I think it was like 42 inches. They actually do that. I mean, they set the so when you doing all the site grading with the tractors and rolling machines and so forth, to where the concrete will start being, the edges will be dug out for the footers, and then the other subsurface materials, visqueen or whatever, and then they build up the floor. The floor of this warehouse had to be like 18 inches thick of 5,000 psi concrete to hold up very heavy loads. Each warehouse has different requirements for how much load, how many pounds per square inch the floor can tolerate. These airports, when jets land, I mean, there might be 6 feet of concrete, pure iron rods, all that, 6 feet of it, because there's so much weight on, 16 wheels or 8 wheels. You can count the wheels, and these big planes that transport, heavy machinery, military grade tanks, with rotors, cannons, and all that, and they might have 16 or 18 of those things all parked inside the belly of this big military transport plane. Well, when they land, or when they're on the airport, those wheels are carrying a lot of weight. Not only the weight of this big aircraft and the big engines and big everything, but you have the cargo, which is, each one of these military grade tanks, with all the armor material and all that stuff, and the engines, and the tank itself could weigh 50,000 pounds. Well, multiply that by 10, so now you got 500,000 pounds. Plane weighs 200,000 pounds. That means you got 700,000 pounds or 1 million pounds landing on this 16 wheels, which, the surface area of the bottom of the wheel that's actually, touching this cement, runway. And that's why you see the smoke that pops off the wheels, because the wheels are not spinning. And then all of a sudden, they're spinning at 1,000 RPM. So they're going from 0 RPM to 1,000 RPM, within 1 second. So it burns off rubber. I think the heavy-duty tires will last around 12 takeoffs and landings. and most of the rubber is lost in the spinning up of the wheels when they land. So, I mean, there is rubber consumed, with the takeoff because you're, the runway might be 5 miles long. So the plane is running 4.5 miles, before it takes off. So, so there's a certain amount of rubber that's consumed because you have a lot of pressure on those wheels with all this cargo, or whether it be people, that's cargo. So if it's live cargo, it's one thing, and if it's not live cargo, then it's machinery of some kind, big presses, big printers, manufacturing, big, huge paper cutters, for cutting, paper this thick, 4-inch thick, with a real sharp blade. It comes down and that's what they have when they make, $1 bills, $5, $100 bills. The new bills that come off those things, they're all printed on a big sheet, and the cutter has to, go down and cut right along the seams that were between the bills. So there's people. Well, the machines, I don't know if they're manually feeding itself or whatever. But anyway, heavy machinery. So my father supplied the steel. So that's reinforcing steel. That's vertical steel, steel in the roof, steel in the walls, steel in the floors. And they were, multi-pour floors, meaning that it took, several weeks to pour enough cement to make it a 2-foot thick concrete floor. And that's about what it was. Because they were in that bull of a watch factory. My father was part of the development team supplying all the steel products for that. So, you get the plans and specs, and you have to pick up all this steel that was required in that building. And he was manufacturing the steel and then bringing it into the Bullet Watch Factory, around the site or in the building, depending on what stage of construction they were in. And he basically was manufacturing a building, constructing a building that was going to be used to assemble atomic bombs. That's pretty serious stuff. So he assembled, the bombs that, and they were big suckers. Had the uranium package. No, didn't have the uranium package. They were just building the rest of the bomb. And there was a lot of machined, steel, cast iron, I think. So they had a cast iron, furnace thingy in there. And trying to think of what he told me. So they did everything but nothing with the uranium. They could have done that there, but they didn't have to. Because there was another place assembling the uranium piece. This was a facility that was relatively close to like 20 million people. So they didn't want to have the uranium in this factory. So they built the bomb, and they put it on a train, because remember they had a train thing in the back of the warehouse. And they'd ship the shell of the bomb, which was huge, you know, like the size of a car. And they load those empty shells, which were, you know, specifically machined or what the specifications were for the bomb. It was an atomic bomb. They call it an A bomb instead of a H bomb. It wasn't a hydrogen bomb, it was an atomic bomb, which is a different isotope, you know, of the uranium arrangement. And they got trained, they got transported by a train car, lock-sealed train cars. Yeah. And it was shipped to Arizona, somewhere in the middle of nowhere, Arizona. They had a train spur, offloading ramp into another factory that was built right on the edge of the train track somewhere, and it was a scheduled stop, so they could offload, you know, the pieces of the atomic bomb, and then in Arizona somewhere. I don't remember. I don't know if he told me where. I don't think he did because I don't have any recollection of any particular city. And yeah, it wasn't like Phoenix. It was somewhere, you know, in the middle of Arizona somewhere, because that's where they were storing the radioactive material, which then gets assembled inside this bomb. You know, bomb housing, casing. But, you know, it's a big bomb pill. And I don't know if you remember, but, you know, the way these bombs are constructed, they'll have a middle core of one kind of radioactive material, and then an outer core that's perfectly machined to the roundness of the center core spherical piece. So then you got these two shells that come together with the center core, and the two of them excite each other to such a point, radioactive material, that it, you know, it gets to 10,000 degrees, you know, and bam, it blows up, you know, with a huge force. So that was the Hiroshima and Nagasaki. That was all, you know, I was born in 45. This happened in 40, you know, 3 and a half or something. I'm not too sure of the dates. But his effort in constructing the bomb factory, the Bulova watch factory, my mother told me there was Secret Service all over the place, all the time, basically guarding my father, guarding him from external influences, or guarding him from him giving up any secrets. You know, in Secret Service. So secrets both ways. No one can give secrets and no one can receive secrets. So he was followed around with a detail of Secret Service agents. And my mother told me they were all over the place. The neighbors thought he was a criminal guy, because, you know, they don't walk around handing out business cards and saying, "Oh, we're protecting Mr. Wilson because he's involved in building a bomb factory about 8 miles from your house." Yeah, they don't do that. I mean, really, I think he said it was like 25 or 30 million people within a 12-mile circle. Because if there was any explosions that would happen in this plant, it would take out, half of New York State and half of Pennsylvania and half of New Jersey, you lose 30 million people in an instant. Bam. Yeah. So that's what happened with Nagasaki and Hiroshima. Those when the uranium was placed inside these big, heavy steel containers that had a certain amount of radioactive shielding in it. So when the radioactive material was inserted into the bomb pieces that my father's factory built, that would create a protected environment so that the bomb could be handled, stored in a warehouse, then put on a heavy cart. A lifter would have to put it on a cart, heavy duty cart, and then it gets rolled out, to an airplane, to a bomber. And this one was loaded onto a plane. One bomb, one plane. The bomb, with all the uranium and all the casing material, all the stuff that my father's factory machined so that it could be assembled over where the uranium was stored. So they had these uranium, 3 pieces, the central ball and the 2 outside pieces. And the shell is big, 2-inch thick shell all the way around, would come together and basically cover up that baseball-sized piece of uranium. This is uranium 2, this is uranium 1. Well, when you get those 2 pieces together, it becomes an atomic blast. So to make the blast very effective, and the machining is like perfect. So these 2 pieces cover that perfectly sphered machined piece of uranium. It's like a hard form of lead. It's not soft like lead. It's almost like the resilience of gold. 24 karat gold is not strong like steel, but it's stronger than typical uranium, which is like lead. And we all know lead is very soft. The sinkers that go on like fishing lines. Those are lead sinkers. If they're a dark gray metallic, heavy for a small little thing, that's lead. Chemical symbol for that is Ag on the periodic table, whereas gold is Au on the periodic table, and that's a harder material than lead. If you try to stick a screwdriver in it, you're not gonna be able to make an impression on gold very easily without hitting it hard with a hammer. Where lead, you can almost make an impression in there just pushing on it. Anyway, so uranium 232 or 270, whatever. Plutonium, uranium, and any of those IUMs. But there are 2 different types. So you bring them together, it creates a radioactive situation where you want to run away from. You can't run away from, because the blast is so terrific that you can't run fast enough. So what they do is they have these 2. They got this thing in the middle, with this perfectly machined hardball, softball sized piece of deuterium, let's say, some kind of irium. And then you had these two shells that are perfectly machined to enclose this thing 100%. There's 50% on each side. And they're perfectly machined to receive this softball-sized piece of deuterium. And they're held out on precision rails. So they slide back and forth. They're separated about this far away, a foot away. And then behind each one of these shells is an explosive, material that would, and they both explode at the same instant. And they shove real tight and real fast, and that thing goes bang right away. It doesn't close and then heats up. It immediately goes ballistic, if you will, explosive. So that's that's the size of the internals of. So you have all those triggering, mechanisms and rails and however these things come together, and that's what happens when they. So when they drop the bomb, what the triggering mechanism is the atmospheric pressure. So they want the bomb to explode around 2,000 feet above the buildings and everything. They want to blow up underneath it, because if it hits the ground and explodes, then the explosion is going to go this way, up at an angle. But if it explodes at 2,500 feet, then the explosion goes this way and covers a huge amount of the circle below. So it might completely annihilate, a 15-mile circle of everything: buildings, plants, vegetables, people, cows, horses, whatever. They all, become 10,000 degree heated. It's 10,000 degrees in 1/10 of a second. And boom, everything's just fried eggs. I mean, you're just dead. After the explosion, you don't walk around with radiation sickness. That's the next 2 or 3 miles away. Yeah. The first 5 miles, 10 miles across, everything gets 10,000 degrees. When you get 5 miles past that circle, there's another circle for people that are going to die in a week. There's another 5-mile circle where people are going to die in a month. And then the other, further away from that, you're going to die. No, you're not going to die. You're just going to have radiation poisoning. And you become very sick for a very long time. And depending on where you were in that circle, depends on whether you ultimately survive or not. But that's pretty serious stuff. Anyway, that's what happened to Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Those were A-bombs, atomic bombs, as opposed to hydrogen bombs. And my father was building the bomb pieces, all the major bomb pieces. They machined everything in there. The castings, the screws, the bolts, they were all machined right there in that factory, because there were complete kits that went out of there to Arizona. And from there, they were completely assembled and properly triggered. They had a number of triggering methods. So that's kind of consequential piece of history related to my family. Ooh. I don't think he mentioned that to any of our neighbors. They just saw these guys buzzing around for a couple years. They knew it probably wasn't criminal, or else I would have been, or my father would have been carried away. Because you don't put the Secret Service out there for 3 years if they're going to arrest you and put you in jail. You know, they do that in 30 days or something, you know. And then that was the end of that contract. And then he started, providing steel grading products to major bridges in Manhattan. There's a series of trains called the L's. You got a big piece of steel going this way, bolted to another iron beam that's going this way. And if you stand back and look at it, it looks like an L, upside down L. Well, he was manufacturing those L's. And, made a ton of money doing that because it's a big train. Trains run on the top of those L's. So, and the cars right underneath them. So you had cars going this way and that way underneath the train tracks. Train tracks are elevated. Yeah. And went all the way out in different directions from Manhattan where people, are working. Those L's then, the tracks then would end up going underground, to feed the subway system. Very gradual, downhill, and of course, tracks going this way, they go uphill. So they fed Manhattan by gradually going underground to, feed the subway system with these train tracks that would, originate 50 miles away in all directions. Yeah. So my father produced all the L material for the city of New York. What a deal. That's a lot of steel. And then he provided the grading work for many of the major bridges that were just, bridges to bring cars over rivers, or lakes, or both. Yeah. Okay, that's enough of Jimmy's history. I never really got into the news. I'm going to have to, tomorrow I'll have to do that. We'll talk in the morning. I got to one panel. Elon Musk calls the 17-mile-long death machine. Believes it could end humankind. Meaning it's an atom splitter. And it could create poisonous atoms that would kill off humanity. Depending on who got a hold of the nasty material that can be manufactured in such a place. It's a government installation associated with a couple of major universities. And they have to guard things like that so people don't carry on experiments that they shouldn't do because it would be a dangerous, if you didn't know exactly what would be coming out of that machine. And it's a lot of years of, atomic energy schooling and experience to know what the results can be from such stuff. I didn't have too much to do with that. The closest I got to any of that is a pre-med student. I'd have been a good one. I know that. Yes, sir, Bob. I've got a lot of friends that are doctors. I understand what they do from the inside out. And I wouldn't have been one of these guys on the telecall. No. I'd have been, I would be connected with a major university. Or be practicing medicine and teaching medicine simultaneously. Yeah. Because I would have been real good at it because I got a memory like a steel trap. And I just memorized all the books. That's what I did in undergraduate college, just memorize everything. I got it, I got the highest grade in every class. Highest grade connected to science. Other subject materials that you had to take undergraduate, like English and religion. I did all right, solid B. But I just couldn't. I didn't like it. And if I don't like it, I can't memorize it. But you give me a subject material that I really like, I just memorize the book. The bacteriology book, I was so afraid. Remember Dr. Gilbert? I told you this story yesterday, or whatever. But Dr. Gilbert let me in bacteriology class, studying all kinds of microbes, bacteria, a lot of microscope work and, hand drawings of these things that you would see, and label all the internal parts. Yeah. And, a lot of contextual material you had to learn, so I just memorized it all. I understood it, so it was like memorizing. It's like video memorizing, because I would really pay attention in class. I was highly focused on what was going on, not being distracted by anything or anybody. And then in the evening, I memorized the book. That's it. I read it 2 or 3 times, and that was it. I was memorized. I couldn't read it one time. I had to read it several times. And I had to know how to pronounce all the words. Because when I memorize like a passage, I'm almost reading it quietly to myself. But I have to say all the words. So I have to know how to pronounce all the words. And in bacteriology, the words are the big ones. They could be 18 letters long for one word. And then the drugs that get produced by it, I'm taking one. It's called hydrochlorothiazide. Hydrochlorothiazide, that's a big, long word. But, when I say it, you break it down into the little pieces, like hydrochlorothiazide. Hydrochlorothiazide. You say it fast. And you got all these letters. We can count it out. It's probably 15 or 18 letters. But hydrochlorothiazide is I take a 12.5 milligram dose twice a day. 12.5 milligrams in the morning, 12.5 milligrams at night. And if you look it up in the medical directory of some kind, like a PDR, which stands for a Physician's Desk Reference, PDR. Yeah. So if you get sometimes these libraries will throw away old versions of the PDR. So they maybe keep the 5 current years, which has all the new drugs in it and the old drug. So the PDR gets thicker and thicker. The paper gets Bible page, paper by the time you go through 5 years of that. But it's a single volume thing. It's about 3 inches thick. So maybe after 5 years, the 6-year-old one, they pitch it. And no one wants it because it doesn't have all the new stuff. Well, most of the pills that are issued these days isn't the new stuff anyway. So the 6-year-old version is just as good for, non-professional work. So if you look at it, anyway, you can go to the library. You can go on your iPad and try to log into something that has a PDR and then index that with hydrochlorothiazide. And it'll take you right to it and it'll tell you what it is. And, 12.5 milligram, 25 milligram, 75 milligram, and 100 milligram doses. There's like 4 different doses. We're taking the weakest dose there is. It's 12.5 milligrams, which is a little tiny capsule. Capsule, round, shaped like a toilet roll with rounded edges on the ends. That's a big capsule. Not meant for human consumption. So hydrochlorothiazide is in a real small, but you can handle it. But it's about as small as it can be and be handled. They make it in a tablet also, but that's so small. I mean, it's like a grain of sand. It's too small. My automatic pill machine will not handle a hydrochlorothiazide tablet. They're way too small for the whatever grabs the medicine to pick it up and put it in the in the shaft that leads to the cup underneath it. Anyway, I have 2 of these Hero. I have 3 of them. I'm sending one back this week. I'm going to get a hold of those rascals on the phone. And I've unplugged it. And it's off. I have the box. I'm sending it back. I don't need 3 anymore. Just need 2. Because we're taking a lot less supplements than I was. And we're not taking that many prescribed drugs. So there's only, 3 or 4 of those. So you got 6 or 7 slots open for supplements. Now, hydrochlorothiazide would be one of the prescribed ones. And the advantage of the hydrochlorothiazide, if you look it up in a PDR, a Physician's Desk Reference, it'll tell you that it has a marvelous effect on stabilizing, your heart rate and all that kind of stuff. And the electrical impulses and a lot of things. And they really don't know why. I mean, that's one of the amazing things when you read it in the PDR is that they really don't know exactly what's happening to make it a benefit to your heart function. But they know it does. It's also known as a water pill. So, like a diuretic. So when you take this little rascal, you make sure your lower body parts don't get full of water. Sometimes you see ladies that are real heavy and they'll have these really thick ankles. Well, that's water. That's just following gravity into your leg and going into your ankle and your foot. So they end up with swollen feet and swollen ankles. So they give those kinds of patients water pills, meaning they take the pill and it expels excess water from their body because they're obviously carrying around too much of it. Hydrochlorothiazide could be one of those pills. So it's actually designed as a water pill with an ancillary benefit of stabilizing your heart function. And they noticed that people that were taking these water pills, these hydrochlorothiazide pills, they wouldn't get heart attacks. Yeah. So, and they don't know why, actually. They actually do not know why. There's no published article that I've read so far that tells you exactly what's going on with the hydrochlorothiazide pill as it relates to preventing people from having heart attacks. There's another pill that my grandfather told me about. And he's a doctor, internist. And had all these people, old people, middle-aged people, whatever, big practice. He was president of the Virginia Medical Association. So you know he had a big practice and he was a well-known guy. Nice gentleman. Oh, God. It's my father-in-law, former father-in-law. He passed away. And he told me, he says, Jimmy, this is Dr. Hill talking. He looks down at me. He's a big, tall guy. I'm not so tall. He says, Jimmy, take aspirin every morning, a low-dose aspirin. Even if you have to cut a big one up in pieces, you don't want a 300 milligram aspirin. You want an 80 milligram, baby aspirin. When he told me this 50 years ago, I don't think they called them baby aspirin. They were just low dose. LOWDOSE, low dose aspirin. He said, take those like vitamin pills. Take one a day. Just have a bunch of them, and you take them one a day like you take a vitamin. If it's the only thing you take that day, because you don't have any other pills or supplements you need to take in that day, you take the low-dose aspirin one a day, every day, regardless of how many other pills you take. And he says, you know why? He says, because I have thousands of arthritic patients, and they come and see me periodically about their arthritis. Now, in that case, I give them, this is him talking, he says, I give them 300 milligram aspirins 3 times a day or twice a day. And that's a high-dose aspirin. But that here's a word, acetylsalicylic acid. Thank God it rhymes a little bit. Acetylsalicylic acid. Yeah, it's pronounced just that way. That's what the pill is, acetylsalicylic acid. And he says, none of my arthritic patients get heart attacks. And with that, I'll end this session. There'll be a quiz on Monday. Have a great day. Bye-bye.